What is the number one killer in the Black community? What if I told you that the number one killer in the Black community ends more Black lives every year than the next 15 leading causes combined? Planned Parenthood kills more Black lives in 2 weeks than the KKK killed in a century.
Hi, I'm Mallory Wilson with the Washington Times. Behind me is the bus from Planned Parenthood of Great Rivers, where they're giving free vasectomies, free medicated abortions, and free emergency contraception in Chicago's West Loop, just 10 minutes from the Democratic National Convention.
Planned Parenthood staff is saying that on the first day of the DNC, they did 10 free abortions. 10 helpless babies have been sacrificed so far at the DNC death cult.
We have been here yesterday, today, providing some free care to folks, vasectomies and medication abortion. And, again, we're just really excited to provide the opportunity for the thousands of folks who are coming to Illinois.
You walk into that operating room scrubbed and gowned, and after removing laminaria, you introduce a suction catheter into the uterus. This is a 14 French suction catheter.
This really is just health care.
If she were 12 weeks pregnant or less, basically the width of your hand or smaller, you could basically do the entire procedure with this. But babies this big don't fit through catheters this size. After suctioning the amniotic fluid out from around the baby, you introduce an instrument called a Sofer clamp.
This really is just health care.
This is a grasping instrument. When it gets a hold of something, it does not let go.
This really is just health care.
A D&E procedure is a blind abortion, so picture yourself introducing this and grabbing anything you can blindly and pull, and I do mean hard, and out pops a leg about that big, which you put down on the table next to you.
This really is just health care.
Reach in again, pull out an arm about the same length, which you put down on the table next to you. And use this instrument again and again to tear out the spine, the intestines, the heart and lungs.
This really is just health care.
Head on the baby that size is about the size of a large plum. Can't see it, but you pretty good idea you've got it if you've got your instrument around something and your fingers are spread about as far as they go. You know you did it right if you crush down on the instrument and white material runs out of the cervix. That was the baby's brains.
This really is just health care.
Then you could pull out skull pieces.
This really is just health care.
And you have a day like I had a lot of times, sometimes a little face comes back and stares back at you.
This really is just health care.
Congratulations, you just successfully performed a second trimester D&E abortion. You just affirmed her right to choose.
This really is just health care.
For the first time in my life, I really looked at that pile of body parts on the side of the table.
This really is just health care.
And I didn't see her wonderful right to choose, and I didn't see all the money I just made. All I could see was somebody's son or daughter.
This really is just health care.
Women are not being told the truth about what this experience will really be like.
The problem is primarily in the Democratic Party. Like now it's in the Republican Party too, but I think we know who's perpetuating the extremism.
They are promoting, they are advocating abortion, they are celebrating abortion.
I mean, they're saying my body, my choice. What about, yes, as a woman, it's our body, but when we're pregnant, there's another body, right? There's two bodies and another body that deserves a shot at life. And they talk about freedom and women's empowerment. There's no freedom in killing your child. That's slavery to an anti-life ideology that tells you that motherhood is a curse.
As founder of the American Birth Control League, which later became Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger was no doubt a controversial figure with disturbing views on eugenics, race, and population control. Despite those views, liberals praise Sanger's work while ignoring her history.
I admire Margaret Sanger enormously. Her courage, her tenacity, her vision. I am really in awe of her.
Abortion can never on its face be safe because in order for an abortion to be deemed successful, an individual and unique human being with a beating heart must die. That can never be safe for that individual human life. I know it has a heartbeat. I know there is life there, and I know it is innocent, and I'm willing to kill it.
This really is just health care.
We have sunk to a new low in our society.
This really is just health care.
Hello and sober evening to you. Tonight's discussion is a hard one to have, which unfortunately is why many believers and churches either refuse to have this discussion on this horrific topic about abortion, and or they just ignore the whole thing. And so I do prefer calling it what it is, the murder of innocent babies while they are still in their mother's womb rather than in their arms. Please do check out kogmissions.com/life. There is a lot of information there, videos on this topic, whether you are somebody who's considering an abortion, or maybe you are trying to promote pro-life thinking in your church or your area and trying to expose the lies of the pro-choice side. So there's a lot of information there. Please check it out, share it with other people. One of the questions at hand tonight is abortion health care? Or is it homicide? We hear that word thrown around a lot, that it's healthcare. And it seems to fit the definition more of homicide, which is an act where an agent causes the death of a separate human being. And that, when we take a look at abortion, that's what that is. Before we begin tonight, I would like to say that we are not here to shame people or to make you feel bad if you've had an abortion. There is hope. And you can ask God to forgive you. Jesus's blood can cover all of our sins, including abortion, if we seek forgiveness. And it would seem, too, that your baby still does have a future hope in the second resurrection. And so you can be forgiven and you can find healing. So please remember this and remind people that there is hope. My guest tonight is Carla Becheras, and I have pasted a previous testimony video in the chat there that I did with her last year. It's her experience of hope and healing, and she continues now to help others to have that same hope and healing. Before I do bring Carla on, though, I do also want to say that in regard to politics, since this is a big topic right now in the political world, I personally do not get involved in politics. I do keep my eye on them. And I personally cannot cast a vote for the lesser of two evils. But I do know that some Christians feel very strongly about voting. And so I just pray and I ask you to please consider our discussion tonight. And when you do vote, vote for the lesser of the two evils. This world is going from bad to worse. And Jesus said that this would happen before he returns. And he gave his followers one job to do, and that's to sow the seeds of the kingdom, to tell people that a better day is coming. He didn't tell us to try to fix the world now or even to abolish abortion before he comes. But he did tell us to love and obey our master, remain loyal to him as we do the work that he gave us to do. And in our churches, Christians need to be teaching on these topics and informing the believers, because this world is crazy and it affects many believers. And so I really wanted to have this discussion. I'm grateful that Carla is going to be sharing a lot of her wisdom with us. And many believers haven't considered some of these issues that we're going to discuss tonight. I know I hadn't thought of all of them either right away. And when I was talking to Carla the other day, I learned something new. So hopefully that you may as well. And we just need to realize that there is a lot going on in the world, and not only in the world, but in our churches. And one bad decision does not warrant another. And we're going to be talking tonight not only about abortion, but a few other things as well. And we need to realize that, yes, sex outside of marriage is wrong and a sin, but being pregnant is not a sin. It is a result of the other sin. And so tonight we are going to talk about when does life start? Does the Bible support abortion? Birth control options and non-options for the Christian. We're going to talk a little bit on IVF as well, and maybe we'll end with a little bit of abortion politics. Welcome, Carla.
Hi, Tracy. How are you?
I'm good, and how are you?
Great, great. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I know it is hard and it's an uncomfortable topic, but I do think we need to talk about it, and I know you feel the same way. Could you please tell us briefly a little bit about yourself and the volunteer work that you do at a local clinic in your area?
Yes, I am a volunteer women's counselor at Heartbeat of Miami Pregnancy Health Medical Clinics here in Miami, Florida. They have different clinics in particular areas, usually right across the street from a Planned Parenthood or an abortion clinic. And we provide education to women and options and hope other than abortion. Usually, the women that walk into the Planned Parenthoods and the abortion clinics are in crisis mode. So we have people praying before these clinics and trying to convince women to come on over here, listen to what we have to say, in the hopes of saving the mother and perhaps and saving her baby in the process as well. So yeah.
Thank you. And again, please watch the video in the chat there of Carla's testimony. It's very powerful, and share that with anybody that you know that is either considering an abortion or who has had an abortion. So a lot of times, Carla, in the Bible, we read that, oh, they offered their children to Moloch, they sacrificed them, and we say, oh, that's so awful, how could they do that? But we've really reached a sick point in our society because we've chosen to be deceived, thinking that abortion is women's health care. So would you please share with us a little bit about the misconception of, quote, women's health care or reproductive health care?
It's very disheartening. We're still sacrificing our children to the altar of me. It's what's most convenient for me. I'm not ready. I wasn't planning on this. I didn't plan it. Every single woman that walks through our clinics has the same story. I don't understand when it started to become, when they started calling it healthcare, because it's absolutely not healthcare. There is nothing more false than calling it healthcare. We've had women that have had abortions and then had a slight complication afterwards, and they call our clinic to see if they can come in and have a sonogram done, because we perform sonograms for free for the women that are pregnant. They can see their babies on the screen versus going to a Planned Parenthood where they have the sonogram done and they don't show them the baby. We do show them the baby. So they want to come in because they feel that maybe there's something left in there, and the clinic won't see them again. They will send them to the emergency room to have that done and maybe have a DNC to finish the job that they didn't get to do. So after the abortion's done and they collect the money, they're done with you. That is not healthcare. That is plain and simple murder. You're detaching a child from the mother's womb in pieces, and then you send her on her way, whether it's surgical or whether it's with the pill. That's even worse, in my opinion. They give you the mifepristone, the misoprostol. You have to take the first pill in front of them, and then they send you home with a second batch that you have to take in a day or two. And you're in pain at home, and you're passing your child right straight into the toilet, and that's, how is that healthcare? How is that?
And they're not there for them. No. They're saying, oh, I'm in pain. I'm having,
I have a fever. What do I do? We tell them you have to go to the emergency room. Did you call the clinic? Yes, I called the clinic, but they told me to go to the emergency room. I guess you have to go to the emergency room. So after their job is finished with you, they're done.
So it isn't healthcare. And like we were talking before, it isn't a women's right issue. It's a human rights issue.
A human right issue. That's correct. Because what you have inside is a human. I tell the girls, and it's a lack of, it's chaotic, really. The brain of a woman today is such a product of the Roe v. Wade generation. They're just so confused. You have to really emphasize you have a human being growing inside of you, no different than the other one that you have at home, no different than you, no different than me. Okay, you just can't see him yet. But if they would start to understand that life is in stages, if you start seeing life in stages, okay, maybe they'll understand that the most basic number one stage happens inside a woman's body. It's you don't see it. When the baby's born, then they're in the newborn stage, then they're toddlers, then they're teen, and so on and so forth. But the first stage of life is in the womb for everybody. We all started off the same way, and it's a long conversation that we have to. And in the end, sometimes they still go out there and they choose not to have their child. You know?
But you do all you can to inform them and to help them to make a more intelligent decision.
Exactly.
With information. I know somebody you had shared, they said, well, I'm pro-choice because the government shouldn't tell a woman what to do with your body. And I would agree with that. They shouldn't tell me if I can take vitamin D or I should or shouldn't do it. But again, there are two bodies here. What you're doing is not to your body, it's to the baby's body.
Somebody else's body. Exactly. You know, the government doesn't tell women what to do with their bodies. You've got women cutting off body parts and implanting other body parts, trying to become something that they weren't meant to be, and nobody tells them anything. It is not about the woman's body. This is about giving a voice to the most vulnerable, the voiceless human being that's growing inside a woman's body. We are meant as Christians to protect the most vulnerable. That's what we are told to do in the Bible. The widows and children. Okay, this is a small child. It's a small child growing in your womb, and we as Christians need to speak up and give those children voices. And that's what we try to do. Just be the voice of that child and talk to his mother and try to advocate for him before she makes a decision that she will eventually regret.
Yeah, no matter what they say. Before we get started here, why don't you say a few words about rape or incest? That always comes up. What about rape or incest? I mean, like, what percentage of abortions are actually rape and incest? And you know, it's sad, but does one evil justify another evil?
It is sad. And, you know, as a parent, I understand, you know, if your child was raped, now you've got two children that you've got to figure out what to do. It has to be hard. But like you said, you know, two victims don't have to come out of this, of a crime, of a bad event, of a sin. You know, you create one victim and then you have an abortion. Now you've got two. And this is something that's, somebody who goes to a traumatic event like that is already scarred. Okay, so you're gonna create a brand new scar, one that's just, it just doesn't go away. You know, the only way you hide it is by masking it. And here in Florida, I can tell you that of all the abortions that happened last year, 0.6% were due to rape or incest. More than likely human trafficking. We see that, and it's gone up. It was less than 0.6. So I hear a lot about the rape and the incest, but that's like less than 1% of all abortions that happen in the entire country. Really, it's 1%. So, and in every state, including this one, now we have the heartbeat law, where after 6 weeks you cannot have an abortion. Okay. Heartbeat law, because by 6 weeks you can hear the heartbeat. The heartbeat is there from day 21, but you can't really hear it until 6 weeks. Okay, it's an audible heartbeat. You cannot have an abortion, period. They send you home, have a baby shower, you know. But and here in Florida, I know that it was this past year it went up to 0.6, and I can guarantee you that's because, like I said, human trafficking and all the stuff that's going on. Yeah, it's not now they're trying to pass Amendment 4 in November, trying to make it as part of the Florida Constitution to give every woman the right to have an abortion until possibly viability of the fetus, which is not a defined term, and it could go up to birth. It's a mess. So we're fighting.
Well, and Minnesota's already done that, so it's very sad.
It is. It's horrible. It's horrible.
If you're talking healthcare for babies, that's pediatrics, I think, and you know, women's healthcare is more of the gynecologist than a Planned Parenthood. So let's move on to when does life start, because I think that's the bottom line, and that's what you know, people can't agree on. You know, the Bible teaches that a human person is made up that you are a soul. God doesn't like put a soul in you. You are a soul according to Genesis. You know, you have this body, you know, like he created man from the dust of the earth, and he breathed into his breath the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So you're either a living soul or a dead soul, and you need these two parts. I know some people think the breath of life means that you're breathing, and we'll talk a little bit about this here, or just when you can hear that heartbeat. Personally, understanding how babies are created in their mother, they don't start breathing until after they come out anyways. Their lungs aren't even functioning. And so this life force is in them, I believe, and I think you believe as well, that at conception, and we'll get to that point. But let's look at these three ways, and just share any thoughts you might have. So some people say it's only a human being when it comes out. Once it's born, now it is. And then also when the heart starts beating. So maybe those two things, if you could comment on that, and you can even work it into at the moment of conception.
Well, I have a hard time. I have a hard time trying to figure out who's trying to define this. That's been defined. You know, the Lord defined this. He, my understanding, when God is life, and He breathes life into you. It has nothing to do with breathing. Okay, it's just He breathes life into the man's nostrils, and he became alive. His body became animated. Okay, as soon as a sperm joins an egg, there's a human genome. There is a blueprint for a brand new human being. The sperm is the only human cell in the man's body that has 23 unpaired chromosomes. And so is the egg in the female body. Only 23 unpaired chromosomes. Every other cell in our bodies, us, you and me, they're all paired chromosomes. These two cells were made for the sole purpose of joining together. And when they do, boom, okay, you have a 46 DNA strand, 46 chromosome DNA strands, 23 perfectly paired chromosomes. That's a brand new blueprint for a human being that didn't exist before. It's a brand new creation. You have a DNA of 46 chromosomes. I have a DNA of 46 chromosomes with all my traits and the color of my eyes and my gender and my everything. Even the number of eggs that I'm going to produce as a woman for the rest of my life is determined the moment that egg joins the sperm and that DNA is created. That, my friend, that's life. That's
the life force there. The body's animated now because it's dividing.
Exactly. Okay. And it's amazing because, and I was talking about that to my husband the other day, and I even got teary-eyed of how powerful and how perfect it is. It's just perfect. You can have 15 kids and the DNA and the chromosomes arrange themselves completely different, and that's why they look alike a little bit, but not quite the same, because they carry grandma's eyes. And it's just amazing. And all DNAs are different. Nobody has the same DNA unless you're identical twins. So that's the moment that life begins. That's the moment that I started. I don't know about anybody else, but I know that's when I began. Okay, that's when God gave me life. Okay.
Well, and that life force too is because, I mean, it starts multiplying right away.
It starts multiplying immediately. 12 hours after that joining together, 12 hours after that, there's, I think, 18 pairs of cells already. And it takes a week. It starts traveling. It takes a week for that embryo that already is an embryo to travel and implant itself in mom's uterus. It takes a week. Mom doesn't even know she's pregnant. Mom doesn't even know. By the time you hit the 21 days after conception, there's a heartbeat. There's a very tiny little tube that's moving like this.
And that's something I wanted to comment on, because I was reading that, under 12 weeks of gestation, they don't even have hearts. So they can't have a heartbeat. But what they have is that little flutter you were talking about, which becomes the future heart.
At 12 weeks of gestation, they have arms and they have legs and they have fingers and they move. Maybe not voluntarily, but there's movement. We've had sonograms where we bring in the dad, because the dad is very visual. A man is very visual, and they have to see, you see the little tiny coffee bean looking thing in the sonogram, and mom is all teary-eyed and dad's like, what? So we bring him in again, after 8 weeks, between 8 to 12 weeks. And there is a baby with a head and arms and legs, and you can see little fingers, and they move around. They've got room, so they move. So it's not there's a heartbeat. You can see it. There's a spinal cord. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. Every time I see one, I get emotional, because you can see the men saying, and we recorded, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, it's real. He's got arms, and he's got arms and legs. And I go, yes. And she doesn't even have a belly. There's no belly there.
Right. And that's where they see, oh, the belly means it's there.
Yeah.
But like we both were saying the other day too, Psalm 139, that, knit together in my mother's womb. And it starts right at that conception, that knitting together and that multiplying and dividing and growing. That life force is there, helping it to get to the point what it is when it comes out.
I could literally see that happening, because when those two cells join together with those 23 lonely chromosomes and the 23 lonely chromosomes, and they arrange themselves, it's not random. It's not random. It's the Lord knitting you in your mother's womb, 100%, literally, quite literally. Because when you get pregnant again, they get knitted together in a different way. Your siblings just look like you. They're different. So that it's a miracle. It's a miracle, and it's one that I mean, Christians need to really look into a lot to really understand what happens in utero. And it's not a choice. It's a human being.
The problem is, I think, Carla, when they call it an embryo or a fetus or this or that, instead of calling it a baby or a human being, it's a little one. And
we don't do
so
that.
I think but people do that, and so I think it makes it easier to distance themselves from it being a human being.
100%. But it's the scientific name that they've given that stage of life. Right. Just like my 85-year-old mom is now called a geriatric or a senior or whatever. It's just the scientific name that they give it to explain, but it's a baby. We never call, the fetus is now about 12 weeks. No. From the beginning, this is your baby. The little, look at the baby. From the beginning, we never call the baby anything other than a baby, because that's what it is. It's a baby,
Right.
Girl, whatever it is, it's just a baby, and let that sink in. It's a baby.
Exactly.
I bet you it's a girl. Oh my goodness, is this going to be your first? And you get them excited because it's exciting. When you realize what's happening to your body, it's exciting. And you de-escalate the crisis a little bit, because every woman walks in there undecided.
Well, and she's afraid of all these other things. I don't have money. I don't have a place to live, or, or whatever else. And so, and I know you guys help with that as well with them so that it's not,
we try. It's a quick fix, and it's being used as birth control, which is horrible. Okay. It's very, I think I told you, though, my doctor was telling me that, no, she didn't believe that in this country, women used abortion as birth control. That happens in third world countries. I said, no, women in this country use abortion as birth control. I do post-abortion recovery as well. And one of the participants in the group had over 6. Okay. And she's in her 70s, and she never spoke about it. And I told my doctor, I have a lady that comes to my clinic. She said, no. She could not have had those in this country. No, she did. It's just a big secret. Nobody talks about it. That's why she's coming to post-abortion recovery, because she wants to be free of the secrets and she wants to heal.
Mm-hmm.
But the doctors would know. We doctors would know. No, you wouldn't. I'm post-abortive, and my doctor, who delivered all my daughters, still has no clue that I ever had an abortion.
Mm-hmm.
I would never. I don't have to tell him that. In order for me to say something like that, I would have to admit it, put it on paper, and at the time, I wasn't ready to. I was in denial. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of women don't mention them. It's not something to be proud of.
And so we're saying that conception, that is when the egg is fertilized. So that's when it's arose. And we're going to discuss this a little bit further on, so we don't need to get in it, but we'll talk more about IVF and the conception there as well. But I know when you were sharing with me about yourself, you said, I never realized that something could turn, or it's not something that just turns into a human life, that it is a human life.
Right.
And you said, if someone would have told me this, if I would have been educated in this, maybe there would have been a different outcome. And that's, again, the reason why I really want to have this discussion. It's not to try to convince, the left that you shouldn't have abortions and that this is wrong, because most likely they're not going to change. Maybe they will, but this is for people who call themselves believers, the churches that need to be talking about this, sharing with especially the young girls in their churches, because they don't know. It's out of ignorance, and that's not a bad thing. Like, you're not bad because you're ignorant of it, but you need to be educated. And I think something like this, we need to do that so they can be, so that they can make a conscious, educated decision on what they're doing. And so if you want to share a little bit about, what you shared with me about that.
Yes, I had a many 30 something years ago, I found myself pregnant, with my husband's and our first child. And I flipped out. I was scared. I was young. We weren't married yet. And I was just petrified of my dad. What's he going to say? Oh my goodness, this is horrible. My wedding dress is not going to fit me. All those stupid things that when you think about it, you just, so I went to a place. I started calling places because I was in a hurry. I wanted to see if I could take care of it before it became a baby. I remember vividly thinking that I have to get this done before it becomes a baby, because right now it's not a baby. It's not a human being. I thought of the pregnancy of my baby. I thought of my baby as something that could eventually turn into a human being if I let it go enough. If I wait too long, it's going to be real, and I won't be able to have this abortion. So that was my train of thought. And when we talk to the women, we tell them and we show them pictures. This is what's happening inside you. It is a baby. If somebody had spoken to me that way back then, I would have had my baby. My husband wanted to have the baby, but he did what all men do nowadays, which is leave it in the woman's hands. Whatever you decide, which is another story for me. I have so many issues with that, but I'll leave it up to you. I'll respect whatever it is. We'll have different, we'll have more. That was the whole premise. And if somebody had spoken to me and told me, look, this is not a future baby or future human, this is a human. Human beings can only become pregnant with other human beings. It's not like you're something else and then you become a human. You're a human from the moment you're conceived. And I didn't think of it that way. I had the classic definition of the Roe v. Wade generation, where it's a clump of cells and eventually it's going to turn into a person. If you let it go long enough, it'll be a person, and then that's it. It's a baby. You can't really abort a baby. So I rushed, and I didn't have my baby. And I think if somebody had given me a solution to my problem, if somebody had, not a solution, but de-escalated me to, what if you get a bigger dress? Or what if I talk to your dad? Or what if you don't do this? Or what if, because it is a human being and it is your first child with your husband. Maybe I would have just said, okay, I'll fight for this. But I didn't.
Right. Yeah. And then that's what I think needs to be done. And even before that happens, before somebody's pregnant, I think parents and the church need to be having these discussions so that people, boys and girls, know ahead of time these facts, so that it's before it becomes a problem for them to deal with. And that way, I think it should help if it does happen. So I think you said the other day too that when a woman's pregnant, there are two patients there. There's not just one. Back to the women's health care, there are two. So do you think, in your opinion, according to the facts, that you can be pro-abortion and a Christian as well, that is, a follower of Jesus?
I don't see how. I don't see how you could possibly believe in yanking a living human being from a mother's womb, an innocent child, in the most heinous of ways. What happened to you shall not commit murder? That's premeditated murder. That's what it is. You have to plan it, and you have to be in agreement with it. And as a Christian person, you cannot possibly be in agreement with committing murder. I told one of my clients, one of the women that went, I said, listen, yes, you do have a legal choice. The law, man-made laws give you the choice of terminating your pregnancy, okay? But if you're a believer, which she said she was, okay? If you're a believer, the Lord says that you can't commit murder, okay? You cannot do this, okay? So it's up to you. You're going to obey the Lord's laws or commands, or you're going to go with what man says you can do. You know, if like I gave her the example, if you go to certain states, you're allowed to steal things under $900 in a store. Okay, you're not going to get in trouble. They're not going to arrest you. Okay, you're a Christian. Are you going to go steal the $900 item, or are you going to buy it? Are you going to do what man says is okay for you to do, or are you going to abide by what the Lord says, which he says you will not steal? Okay, so what are you going to do? So it's like, but we serve the same God. Apparently, we don't, or you have a really misconstrued idea of who God is. Okay, so just think about that for a moment and see, really, really think about who you're obeying. Like, who are you really putting on the throne of God there?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of misconceptions there with I can't let the government tell me what to do with my body. This is I hear it so many times and it makes my blood boil, because it's not your body. It's not your body. You have to stop thinking of it as your body, which if she wanted to be pregnant, immediately they think about the other body. It's a matter of wantedness. It has nothing to do with the baby, or it has to do with what the woman wants. It boils down to that. We have made women are their own gods, basically. If I want it, I'll have it. If I don't want it, I don't have it. Forget about the fact that it's a baby and it's a human life and it has value and the intrinsic value that a human life has. Forget
Right.
about that. In 3 years, I'll want it and then I'll have it. And that's just crazy to me. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, no, absolutely. Christians really need to re-examine their beliefs and who they think God really is, because this is serious.
That's a really good example about the stealing stuff. And I think most Christians would agree with you on that. And this is even a more important issue because it involves another life.
Exactly. It's another life. And you're picking a side that celebrates that. Not only do they advocate for this freedom, but they celebrate it. I can't even look at it. I can't even imagine why you would announce it to the world and celebrate it and come out with signs and be happy that you can finally yank the baby out of your uterus without getting in trouble whenever you want, at will. That's the side that you're on. That's basically what you're saying. The side that celebrates, that's the side that you're picking. If you're going to pick a side, that's the side you're on.
Right.
No matter where you slice it.
So some people say the Bible supports abortion. They use Exodus 21, verses 20 through 25, and Numbers 5, 11 through 31. And in Exodus 21, it's about if two men are fighting and there's a pregnant woman and the baby, the woman is injured, and it brings up the baby. And so people will say, see, it's okay. But if you really read that passage, it's not condoning it. It's more talking about an accidental miscarriage because of being hit, not that it was an abortion. Those are two different things. A miscarriage and an abortion are two different things.
Completely different things. Completely different.
And so, I mean, I don't know about you, but I would say no, that does not condone abortion. And then in Numbers 5, you had said too that people sometimes say that God plays the role of the abortionist here, because a woman who was caught in an adulterous situation is given something to drink, and it says, well, if nothing happens, she didn't do it, and if her belly swells up, and so they automatically take it that God's causing an abortion, which it doesn't say in the passage either. The woman drinks something in her belly. I mean, it's her stomach swells. It doesn't say anything about a baby
No.
even coming from that. It was more just that it was an adulterous relationship. So I don't know if you have anything to add about that.
Well,
But I don't think God condones abortion or the Bible teaches it.
No, not nowhere. I mean, he's very clear to be fruitful and multiply, and the Israeli women, they took that very seriously. You know, they wanted to have their children. They would go to great lengths to become pregnant, and it's not. It would. I can't even think of a situation where even if they were raped, where they would say, "Oh, you know, I'm not having this baby." They took it seriously. They were mothers. They wanted to be mothers. So
Well, and Carla too. When they were saying you had to kill all the babies, the midwives risked their lives to not do that.
Exactly, they sure did. They did not. I mean, it's not even debatable. I mean, God is a life giver, and He gave us women the ability to bring life into this world, not take it. That's our gift. Our gift, our superpower is, wow, we can bring life into this world. Period. That's where it ends. Okay. He did not elaborate because there's no need to. That's where it ends. We give life. That's it. And He said to be fruitful and multiply. He never said, well, unless you don't want to, in which case, you know, you're free to remove the baby from your uterus. Not even, it's so against the character of God. I can't even think any occasion. Although I've heard some preachers, modern preachers nowadays, say that it's a loving thing not to bring a child into this world to suffer and so on. It's so many excuses.
You can find excuses really for anything. One of the people watching, I like what Janet here said, that she tells people she's a year older than the year she was born because she was alive and growing in her mother's womb. And when she got too big, came out, and Mom put her in a crib to grow bigger. That's a good way to look at it.
Absolutely. And I keep going back to the passage, to my women, to the passage of John the Baptist leaping for joy in his mother's womb when he heard the greeting of Mary, and she was 5 months pregnant when this happened. You know, that baby was, nowadays that baby could be torn out of his mother's womb easily. You know, that's a second trimester abortion. No viability. 5 months, there's no viability.
Wow. Yeah.
23 to 24 weeks.
Like I said, Carla, I don't want to just focus just on abortion in and of itself. And I'd like to talk about some options if you don't want to get pregnant, because, you know, that is the problem. People, whether they're married or not married, they're getting pregnant and they think, well, I can just get an abortion to deal with what I don't want to have in my life right now. So the options, and not only, well, we're going to discuss options that would be acceptable by God, most likely, that are not killing a baby with the option. And then we're going to talk about options for birth control that should not be used because it does kill a baby. So in regard to the options we have, if you do not want to get pregnant and you're having sex, or if you don't have sex, that's abstinence is probably the only guarantee.
Learn your rhythm method and take a chance. You know, I mean, if you're married, you know, every time, that's what I tell all the girls, because they come into the clinic. I can't believe I'm pregnant. Were you having sex? Yes. Then why are you shocked? You know, why are you shocked? That's that's the purpose of intercourse, is to produce a human being. Okay. So why are you shocked? If you don't want to be a mommy, don't do mommy things. You know, that's basically, if you're not ready to become a parent, then take the necessary measures to become a parent. And abstinence is the only thing that works. There's
no guarantee.
There's no guarantee. There's birth control pills, but that's poison to your body, and it has side effects, and it has and it only has a 99% chance of, if you do it right, of working. That 1%, it could mean pregnancy or very likely an abortion. They don't count the abortions in their statistics. Only a failed pill to them is when you're able to conceive while on the pill. So it didn't work for you. But it doesn't take into account the times that perhaps you did ovulate and you got pregnant and the embryo was not able to implant because the hormones that you're receiving thin out the endometrium, and it makes implantation impossible, because that's what the birth control pill does. It sends signals to your pituitary gland to tell it that you already ovulated, so you don't need to flood the uterus with all the extra hormones that you usually do to thicken it and to cause a period. No, we're done. Well, sometimes the pituitary doesn't get the memo and you ovulate anyway and you get pregnant, but the baby doesn't implant. So those statistics are not calculated in the failure rate.
And they wouldn't always know then, would they either?
No, you wouldn't.
So, I mean, so you're unknowingly. So basically then, if you don't want to get pregnant, you abstain from sex.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that means you don't get married then, if that's truly what you want. You
Isn't
can use a condom. That doesn't always work. I had a friend who has 2 boys now. It didn't work. You can, like you said, try the rhythm method. And if you're like me, you don't count very well, you're blessed with another child that you wanted anyways.
I'm telling you.
So
nothing is 100%. My 4th daughter was born after a vasectomy. Okay. My 4th daughter is a product of a vasectomy. I don't know if it was a botched vasectomy or not, but it didn't work because a year after the vasectomy, I had her. Okay. So nothing is 100%. Nothing. You can go through all the surgeries and the methods, and if it's not going to work, it's not going to work, So, yeah, I have a friend who had they tried the condoms, work. Okay. So the only thing, what we preach at the clinics, it's a ministry. We preach abstinence. That's the only thing that we preach is abstinence. Okay. Don't do this anymore. Marry him. Okay. Oh, you're going to have his baby. Fantastic. Please marry him. Give that child his last name. You all should have the same last name. You, and you. That's a family unit. It's not very common nowadays for a man to even want to marry the mother of their child. And if he's saying that he's happy with the baby, make a plan. Get married, do it. Oh, I don't know. It's so it's confusing to them. It's
right. Well, those are discussions too. If you are thinking about getting married, of having, do we want children? Because I said too, I don't want to have kids, whatever, but I don't want to have them. My cousin's like, are you crazy? Maybe, but that doesn't mean I was going to do anything to not have them.
Right.
It's not like you really wanted them. But once you got pregnant, it was so cool of, like you said, knowing what's happening and going on. And the website I mentioned, the kogmissions.com/life. On there, we have some of that too, where you can see some videos and pictures and things as the baby develops. And it's amazing how God has done this, and the science in it, just how the baby develops. And so, if you don't want children, you just don't have sex. That's really the only thing.
And I don't know where that leaves adoption anymore. Why does nobody want to even discuss adoption? The Bible points us to adoption all the time. We are adopted children through Christ. I mean, adoption is a beautiful thing, and it's a topic throughout the Bible, and it's just inconvenient. We bring that up all the time to them. Why do you not want to have the baby? Oh, because they don't want to carry it for 9 months. I don't want to go through with it, but no, I could never give a child of mine for adoption. Then I'll be thinking about it all my life. It's a me thing again. It's this me thing. There's no reason for you to, okay, in 9 months, you can literally put that baby in a shoebox and put it in the fire department. And, they have little boxes where you can put newborn babies. They're not going to ask you any questions. They're not going to chase you down. Immediately, the child will be taken and put it. I don't know if they go in the system, but I know they get put up for adoption right away. And firefighters have adopted children that have landed in their fire stations. And I think it's a beautiful thing, but then again, we're not willing to do that. Women are not willing to do that. They will not.
It goes back to me, like you said, that altar of me. So what I'd like to talk more about, though, is what are not options for birth control, especially for a Christian, because it does kill the baby or a potential to kill it. Let's start with the birth control pill that you mentioned, that many women take this to avoid getting pregnant until they're ready to have a baby. And when you and I were talking about this, I was not aware of the risks. I mean, I've always known that, people have more chance to get cancer doing that. But even what you said, that's not even 100%, which in turn could be killing a baby. So if you are against abortion, you really shouldn't be taking this birth control pill either.
Right. You cannot, not to mention the fact that if you stay on it for a prolonged period of time, it does thin out your endometrium, period. You will have a very thin endometrium. So if you end up like my friend, she was on it for like, I don't know, since she was 15, and she got married when she was in her 30s. She wanted to have a child, and she had such a hard time. She ended up with one. She had 6 miscarriages because of the fact that her uterine wall was just so thin. She didn't want to try it in vitro. She wanted to do it the regular way. And if that didn't happen that way, then forget it. So she ended up having the one boy, and that's her only child. But she went through so much. It really damages your uterus. It's synthetic hormones. They're imitation of what your body produces. Okay? You can't, anything that's made in a lab that you put in your body for a prolonged period of time is going to have a side effect, and probably a very detrimental, even deadly side effect.
Could you briefly just share how this pill works? Like, what does it do?
So what it does is that it sends a message to your pituitary and tells it that you have already ovulated, because whenever you ovulate every month, your uterus, you start producing all these hormones that are linked to pregnancy. Your uterus prepares for a baby every single month, every month. Okay. When there is no sperm present and there's no baby, then everything just comes out. Okay. You get your period, and you take a little break, and then it starts all over again. So these birth controls give you a steady, it's like a steady flow, steady intake of fake hormones that tell your body constantly, she already ovulated. You don't have to prepare for baby. Uterus is fine this way. You don't need to ovulate, and you don't ovulate. That's basically what happens until, some people do. It doesn't work for everybody.
And you said that's in the instructions on the box, so it's a warning.
It's in the instructions on the box, right? It sends a message. It sends a message to the glands not to ovulate, and it thins out your endometrium, so that also it makes it difficult for sperm to navigate through and get across. So, but sometimes they do, like I said, and you won't know if they do or if they don't. You can still ovulate, but it says it on the box, because I read the instructions, that if in the event that there was fertilization, the embryo would not be able to implant, because the endometrium has been thinned out. There is no circulation, no uterine buildup for the baby to hold on to that. So you will expel that baby, and you'll never know it. You will never know it, because you get a week period every month. So.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that's something to consider. And again, we've said it before that abortion is not birth control.
No.
That's not an option, obviously, for Christians. And the next one I wanted to talk about is the IUD. I had a friend in Russia. Her mom had one of those inserted, and it had actually implanted itself into her uterine wall, which was having issues. And I know a lot of people do have issues with that, but that's just the risk to the mother. So what does that do if you get pregnant? If your egg is fertilized, what does the IUD, the one that we saw at the beginning, the video of that little T-looking thing that goes in and is spinning around in there all the time?
That releases like copper or something like that into your uterus, and it doesn't keep you from ovulating. Okay, so that one's even less certain than the birth control pill. I think that one's like maybe 96% rate of 3% failure rate. They have it does not allow the sperm to travel and get to the ovum, but you do ovulate. But it releases copper into your bloodstream, into your uterus, and it's stuck there. And I've seen stories of children that are born with the IUD on their head. I mean, the IUD comes out first, and they come out like right next to, and that stuff is being released inside your womb while your baby is developing. So they say it's not dangerous, but
that one that floats around in there too, though, from what I understand, it also is like almost scraping the uterine wall so that the egg cannot, plant there. And so it's a mini abortion without going to the abortion clinic.
Exactly, because when you have an abortion, they have to scrape you, and you create scar tissue. Every time you get scraped, there's scar tissue that's created there, and next time you try to get pregnant and the baby tries to implant there, it's not going to happen. It's the more abortions you have, the less likely you are to get pregnant, because you'll have scars. Whenever you get scraped and you heal, you get a little scar. That's just normal. The body is self-healing. Okay, but there's always a scar that stays behind, and that area is damaged. That little area of your uterus is damaged. You're going to have 10 abortions, which I've seen. Okay, then you're going to have trouble with implantation at some point. That area is completely thinned out. And then there's
it's bad for you and bad for the baby.
Bad for the baby. There's a Plan B thing too, which is also a horrible idea. Horrible idea.
So those are the pills. So let's talk about the pills. You have the Plan B or the morning after. What does that do?
They sell in any pharmacy. You can get it. 13-year-olds can go and pick one up. Okay, and that one, if you take it immediately after you have had intercourse, supposedly you will not ovulate. But there's always a tiny chance that it will not work. And we've had women come into the clinic freaking out that they took the morning after pill, and they took it twice. Okay, because now they're and she didn't get her period. I took the morning after pill, but I haven't gotten my period, and I took it twice. I go, why would you take it twice? What are you doing? So she was pregnant. And the baby was fine. But she goes, do you think the morning after, you think it'll do anything to the baby? Well, apparently, I don't know. You would have to go to a doctor and see what happened. But chances are it just didn't work. It just didn't work for you. It has a pretty decent failure rate.
And what about the abortion pill, where you have to take 2 pills? What's that?
That's a disaster. The first one they give you. First of all, after 8 weeks, you cannot take it, because the child is already too big and it's too risky for you to pass the baby through just natural contractions caused by a pill. So after 8 weeks, it has to be surgical. There are some states that I think allow you to have it up to 8 or 9 weeks, which I find criminal. But after 8 weeks, it has to be surgical. The first pill that you take in the presence of the doctor that gives it to you, it kills the progesterone in your body. When you're pregnant, you produce progesterone, and that's what keeps the baby alive in your uterus. The first pill stops the production of the progesterone, and the baby dies inside of you. And the second set of pills that you take induce contractions, and you pass the baby. It's supposed to be extremely painful. I've talked to several women that have done it. The problem with that is that you can get it on pharmacies online. You don't need to talk to a doctor. You don't need to go to a Planned Parenthood. You can have a consultation with a pharmacist. And we had a woman, I think I mentioned her to you. She was 15 weeks pregnant, and she obtained online some abortion pills and took them. And then she had the sense of regretting it, and she called the abortion reversal pill, the reversal pill hotline, and they sent her to us. And then when we sent her to a doctor. They gave her the appropriate medication shots to keep her pregnancy going, and the baby's fine. Okay, but she had no business taking an abortion pill. It was too late for her. She was 15 weeks pregnant. There was no way. there was no way that she was going to be able to pass a baby. Kill a baby, she could have. She could have killed her baby by stopping the production of progesterone. But there's not enough regulation. It's a mess. It's a real mess. The desire to give women this choice, no matter what, is completely out of hand, and they're getting hurt. They're getting hurt by it.
They're not thinking of the women. I mean, we're talking about thinking about the baby, but they're not even thinking about the women.
No, not at all. This is not healthcare. This is not healthy. It's not healthy for a woman to do that. It's crazy. You're taking your health into your own hands and playing with it is what you're doing. Who takes 2 Plan Bs? Just in case. That's crazy. That's crazy. But
a lot of it's ignorance. They don't know, and they're not aware, because you see a pill, it's just a pill. It's, you take a vitamin, you take, aspirin or whatever, Tylenol. And so you don't really think of it as much. It's an easy solution that you don't really have to think much about.
Exactly. Maybe fear. I can tell you fear. Fear is huge, just to make sure, because I'm going to make sure that it works. So I'll take 2 of them, so, and it's still 2 of them didn't work. One of them didn't work. The other one's not going to work either. After 48 hours, Plan B doesn't work. You wait.
The fear, Carla, too, which is what I was saying before about churches and people that are working with young people, to know that they are in fear. Like you shared, you were, had fear. And so are people being trained to be able to help deal with this and to deal with that fear and to give them better options like you do at your clinic?
They should.
Church needs to be.
Yeah, there's a lot of young people in Christian churches that are sexually active. Okay. They already did it. Okay. But they treat it as taboo. This whole thing about becoming pregnant and abortion, it's taboo, it's offensive. And so it's not something that they want to talk about, because like one of the pastors said, no, we don't want to bring that up, because it's offensive. All we wanted to do was to put a phone number up on the screen to let women know that if they're struggling, that they could call that number anonymously and we can help. Oh, no, that's just, it makes them uncomfortable. Okay, so let them stay uncomfortable, living in pain. And, so it's nobody likes to talk about, and nobody's educating the kids on the dangers of the Plan B, the dangers of the pill, the spiritual and the mental, wounds that you experience. Those don't go away. Your body heals. Your body can heal, but your mind, no. Your mind, nobody tells you what happens to your mind after you do something like this. Okay, nobody prepares you for that. Planned Parenthood will hold your hand, for the rest of your life, and it's something that needs to be talked about, because kids are active. Kids are being sexually active. The moment I found healing for my abortion, the first thing I did, because I never told my kids, I have 4 daughters, and I never told my daughters, and nobody spoke to me about this. So I said, I'm breaking that. I'm going to break that streak. I'm going to tell my daughters that if they ever find themselves in, God forbid, a situation like this, don't do what I did. Don't take the word abortion off the table, because it shouldn't even exist. It's horrible, and it's murder, and it just it'll ruin your life. It'll ruin your life. Yeah.
So, just 1 second here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so considering the life that's being killed, I know you had mentioned like an evil plan, and like with the eugenics, the population control. There's a lot more behind this too than just trying to be good to help women with their health care. And I mean, you see it with these children that have botched abortions, that are born alive, that they don't want to do anything with that. They'll change the wording for comfort care. So that means just putting it on a blanket while it dies, rather than actually taking care of it. And then the late term abortions, why not have a C-section if it's late term and the mother's life is in danger, supposedly?
Right. And apparently that doesn't happen very often. I've seen many interviews with OBGYNs, and they said that they can't think of any situation where they would have to terminate the life of a child in order to save the life of the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And they, I mean, I'm sure they do exist, but it doesn't really happen very often. And in a situation like that, well, let the mother decide what she wants to do. I understand that, a life has to be sacrificed. That's horrible. Okay, it's horrible.
Right. That would have to be, but that's such a minority of
it
minute.
is. And the weird thing is that when Roe v. Wade was passed in the courts, and the woman that, what's her name? Jane Roe, her name, she never aborted her baby. She had her baby. She ended up having her child. And it was the women, her attorneys, the one that convinced her to take this to court to make a name for themselves. Okay. They wanted to make a name for themselves. And this is what happened. Now, abortion has been around forever, and it was a project to diminish the population of what this woman called undesirables, morons, unemployables. It was a horrible project. She was a eugenicist. I mean, Margaret Sanger. She was very, very, very racist, and she wanted to diminish the population of Hispanics, of African Americans. That's why, to this day, most of the abortion clinics are in low-income areas, Black neighborhoods, Hispanic neighborhoods. We have the little 5 clinics that we have in our organization. The one that I volunteer in is in a residential area. It's close to my house. It's not as busy as the ones in Little Havana, where everybody is the new Cuban immigrants and whatever. That one does not stop. It's constantly people coming in and out all the time. And the one in North Miami, which is a lot of African Americans, does not stop. And we're right across the street from an abortion clinic. We're right across the street. So to this day, where we put our clinics, where they put theirs. Okay, so if there's one over there, okay, we need to find a place right around here, so they have a different place to go to. But to this day, those clinics are found in those areas, low-income areas. And it's sad because the African American population is one of the ones that have they have the highest abortion rates anywhere.
And what's sad is that the Democrat side tries to draw those people in as if they're caring for them, and they're really killing them off with the abortions.
They're exterminating their own beautiful race and culture, and it's crazy. It's crazy, and they celebrate this. This is not celebratory. This is the extermination of a race, little by little. It's actually not little by little. It's gaining speed. They know it. The Christian pastors, African American pastors, they know it. Some of the Brian Baumberger, the one that you had on your video, he was a speaker in our fundraiser last year. He has a beautiful testimony, and he'll say it. He'll be one of the first ones to say, we are losing our culture. Okay, we're exterminating ourselves. And it's true.
So abortion is racist too.
Oh yes, it's 100% racist.
Well, and you mentioned Sanger, that that whole eugenics. Hitler was in love with it. The English, the British and the Americans who were doing all of this and sterilizing people and the whole eugenic plan, he used it. But then when everyone realized Hitler's bad, now they have to change it, which is, I believe, after that is when they changed it to Planned Parenthood.
Recently, in 2022, I think it is, they removed Margaret Sanger from one of the biggest Planned Parenthoods. I think that's in Manhattan. They removed her statue and they removed her name from, actually the street was called Margaret Sanger Square, because you can't get away from the fact that this woman wanted to kill Black people. She just did. She wrote about it. In her book, I think it's called My Idea for World Peace. She actually said it. We have to get preachers that can gain their confidence and take them to the neighborhoods, so we can basically fool them, but we don't want to tell them because we don't want them to think that we want to exterminate their population. This is word by word from her book. So they had to distance themselves from that. because they want to stay in business. Okay, so, but yes, the abortion is 100% racist. That's how it started. Her dream was to have an abortion pill. That was her dream, and it's happened.
And as you mentioned to me, it never ends with taking a pill. You start with the pill, and what it ends with is the last thing is you see your baby, like you said, being flushed down the toilet or going down a drain, and it's very emotional and mental and psychological problems in the future because of this, and you deal with that with women.
You will never. I did. I took my abortion recovery journey with a woman who flushed her baby down the toilet. Yeah, that was the last thing that she saw. She said, I saw this little thing. She saw something, and she flushed the baby. That was the last thing. She was married. She had 2 other kids. There was no reason for her not to have this one, and she just chose not to.
Right. So now let's move on here and talk about some options that people do consider when they want to get pregnant, but their bodies are having difficulties with getting pregnant or staying pregnant. And again, like abortion, but this I think even more so because these people actually desire to have children. And so it's a very sensitive topic. And some of the things you and I talked about, I don't want people to think we're trying to make them feel bad or guilty about anything. We're just sharing what the facts are out there, and that people need to consider and have all these facts, just like in regard to abortion or the pills and other things. And as with everything, if we make wrong choices, God can forgive us. But we do need to be consistent. Lila Rose is one that that does a lot of work in all these areas.
Yes.
But she said you need to be consistent about a baby being a baby from conception, even when it comes to reproductive technology. So could you share a little bit about what IVF is and that technology and how that works?
So IVF, it's a blessing for women that cannot get pregnant on their own for X or Y reasons. But as everything that man touches, okay, there's a very ugly side to IVF because the implantation process happens. First they have to harvest your eggs. Okay, they have to inject you with enough hormones so that you can produce a bunch of eggs. Then they remove them, okay, and they freeze them until you're ready to become a mom. And at that point, they fertilize those eggs with your husband, your partner, whatever, sperm. All of them, most of them, okay, not all of them survive in utero. Of course, you know that, it's just a few. In the meantime, okay, you're injecting yourself with hormones to be able to sustain the fertilized embryos that they're going to put inside of you. Not all of them make it. Some of them do, some of them don't. If they take out 20 eggs from you and they fertilize 20 of them and they implant 4, let's just say, and 2 of them take, you've got 2 kids, you don't want any more kids. What are you going to do with the 16 that are left in there? Okay, those are 16 of your children. They are babies. They are fertilized eggs. They've got DNAs that belong to you and your husband, and they're exactly the same as the 2 kids that you decided to keep. So what they end up doing is they stay frozen forever in limbo, but 90% of the time they get donated to science, and that's where you have the stem cell research. Big pharma gets their hands on there. Okay, the human stem cell, they take from a embryo that's 5 days old, has magical cells in it. Okay, has cells that they call it puri. Oh gosh, it starts with a P. I can't remember the name, but it's cells that basically you can grow any organ from those particular cells because it's from an embryo that's creating all these organs that are not yet there. So they take them out and they study liver, pancreas. They could literally grow probably an organ from those cells, not a whole human, but different organs, and they use it for research. So you're basically allowing somebody to take your child, okay, and study it for science. Okay, alive human being. Okay, yes, it's still in its very incipient stages, but that's immoral. I mean, that's horrible. You're allowing somebody to take your baby. You're reproducing for somebody to take your baby and study it and kill it just to study it. Okay, that's like
Are
out of a
there
movie.
options in that? I mean, can you like just fertilize, say, 3 eggs and
They
say, I'm
could.
not going to go that route?
They could, but every time that you have an implantation, it costs a lot of money. Okay, I think it's something like $25,000 or something every time they implant them. So they put more than what you need, and they tell you you could end up with multiple. Now, what I read recently is that they weed them out. They actually have a way of telling which ones might come out with maybe some illness, or now this one, this one looks like a weak embryo, this one may not survive, or basically you can eliminate them while you have them in your belly. Like if the four of them take and one of them looks a little weaker than the other and you don't want four, you can inject yourself and the weaker one will die and you'll abort it naturally. You'll miscarry. Okay, and you'll keep the ones that are stronger that are in there. So I always wonder, why can't you just fertilize, I don't know, 4 and just end up with 4 children? Because not all of them survive, and every time you implant you have to pay a lot of money. I think I told you we have a friend of a family member who was at 19 she had to have a full mastectomy because she had a stage 4 cancer, which was passed on to her from her mom, and all the women there had that gene, and she contracted stage 4 at age 19. She's a baby, and they harvested her eggs. And she's got frozen eggs somewhere. She's married now. She's 20 something, and she's now considering becoming a mom. Okay, she's a believer. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Seriously, it's a conundrum. Okay.
And there are 2 issues here too, because we have the ethical issue that some people feel very strongly about, of using science and technology to create a human, like you're playing God. I don't know that the Bible specifically addresses that, and that's not really what we're addressing tonight. People have to decide. But what we're really addressing is, like what you said, is that process of fertilization. And once you have those fertilized embryo, the babies, that they are a baby, whether they're still in a petri dish and going to be implanted in you, or they are implanted in you, they're still a baby. And so it's not just like, and that's where they get their whole idea probably of a little clump of cells, is because that's what they see in the petri dish, is a little clump of cells. And so, it's a little clump of cells. Like you said, this one's no good. They have people like, do you want boys or girls, or however they do their science with that and whatnot. And I do think one thing we do need to say, though, that if there are people that they have had a child that was brought into this world through IVF, that child is not a mistake or a problem or anything. It's still made in God's image. It is a human being that God loves. And so we are not saying anything, about that.
Not at all. It's the ugly. There's an ugly side to IVF. It's a beautiful thing when you can help a couple, have their own child. But there's this other side that you, as a believer, you have to think about. You have to think about, is this something that you want to do and take part in, despite the fact that that this is what's going to happen? Okay, that's something that has to play a role in your decision making. I do have a woman in one of my Bible studies. She got married a little bit older. She had an abortion in Cuba. She decided not to have it. She came here. She got married. She's 44 now. Never had a baby. And they have the money for IVF. They don't want to do it. They decided they don't want to do it. He said, look, if the Lord is going to send me a baby, he's going to send me a baby. He goes, my husband and I, we're intimate. Okay, we do have sex. I haven't been able to conceive. The Lord doesn't want me to conceive. You go, do we have the money for IVF? Yes. Are we going to use it? I don't want to. Okay, that's her choice. Because I'm not going. She's not going to force the issue. I respect that. I respect that. But
well, right, and it is hard. But again, like we're talking tonight, we just want people to be educated with this, because the question is, can you be pro-life and still support the IVF? Perhaps if you're only fertilizing a few eggs, and if you get pregnant you do, and you don't, and there are none that are being thrown out, because the IVF in and of itself, like this, isn't what we're talking about as a sin. It's throwing out the babies that are not implanted.
Exactly.
Destroying them, discarding them.
There's food for thought there for believers. There's ask the questions. Ask the question. You need to know everything. It's not just about you getting pregnant. There's other things that are playing in the background that you need to think about. Are you okay with leaving frozen babies there forever? Is that what God would want you to do? are you okay with that? Some people are, so they'll just.
But they need to know and you make your decision and you answer to God about that.
Exactly.
So basically the two choices are IVF or adoption. I know one lady here, she's older now. She had breast cancer as a young girl, and she was never able to have children because of the treatment that she had. Or no, it wasn't breast cancer. She had cancer. Anyway, she had cancer and she wasn't able to have children. And, she was in a local church and she taught Sunday school for the real little kids. And she says, I have so many kids. God has blessed me with all these kids. She's looking at, like, the young man who married my daughter. That's one of my kids. I had him since he was a baby, when he was first brought to church. And she finds joy in that. And that's good. It looks to me like you froze up, Carla. Are you still there? I don't know if you can hear me or not. Hopefully Carla comes back to us. Can you still hear me? It looks like she cut off. Okay, so we'll continue on and hopefully she makes it back in. So finishing up here, that life at conception, these fertilized eggs are human beings. And what she was talking about with the IVF is a lot of them, they have chromosome screening, genetic screening. And so you can either have, if you do IVF, you can have them transferred to your uterus. They could be flash frozen or stored. And welcome back, Carla.
Sorry, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you froze up. Glad you're here. I was just saying the options, if you do IVF, they can be transferred to your uterus. They could end up getting screened, genetic screening and all that. Flash, frozen and stored, donated to science, or destroyed. So, that's the ethical decision that Christians need to make. There could be life for one of them, but it means death for the others. Exactly. So I don't know if you have anything else to share on that. And you had mentioned it can be dangerous for the mother, developing cancer, ovarian and breast cancer as well.
Yes, we lost a very dear friend to IVF treatment. She could not get pregnant with her first, and it was successful. She had a baby girl, and when she turned 6, she wanted to try for a second one. And the process is grueling, and they inject you, and you have to be constantly getting those progesterone injections, and who knows what else they inject you with. But they do tell you that there is a chance that you could develop some kind of cancer, because all the stuff that they're putting in you to be able to hold the baby, it's huge, and it's not coming from your body, it's artificial. So during the second IVF treatment, she became very ill. Her stomach was swollen. She looked pregnant, but she wasn't. And when she went to the doctor, they did her sonogram, and she had a huge tumor in her ovary. For some reason, it was not caught during the treatments. And she had she had to have everything removed, her uterus, her ovaries, chemotherapy. They tried everything. They did everything. It was basically a stage 4 ovarian cancer that developed super fast. It had spread to the lymph nodes. She lasted
Wow.
3 years.
Hmm.
And she just basically did everything she could do to be able to spend more time with her daughter, who was 8. You know, when she passed away, she was 8, close to 9.
Hmm.
So
Sad.
absolutely, all the excess hormones that are not supposed to be there do something to your body. And like I said, when you take the birth control pill for a long period of time, your endometrium thins out. So they have to treat it in order to implant embryos in. So if you've taken the birth control pill and then you decide to do in vitro, you're going to have a difficult time getting pregnant as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. So, do you have anything else to share with that? Otherwise, we'll go on to our last topic of abortion politics. Um, so, what we want to do is just make people aware of things. Food for thought. If you are considering voting, as I said earlier, I don't vote because my conscience will not allow me to vote for the lesser of two evils. But I know many Christians say that they feel the need to vote. And so I really encourage them to vote for the lesser of two evils in regard to this topic of abortion, because it's really big right now in the whole political season that we have going on. This is a big topic between the two candidates. And, there are other things that people might be considering when voting, this policy and that, but a lot of those policies don't involve killing people. And obviously, you shouldn't be voting for gender or color or race or anything like that. I mean, those are not things that constitute somebody that can lead your country. But if you are putting your 2 cents in and your hand in the pot, I think we need to, consider some of these things because, like I said, it's a major focal point right now. And you have to consider who you're casting your vote for and what you're casting your vote for, not just who. And that blood is, I think, on your hands as well, when it goes to not only killing babies, but a lot of this up to birth, like the Minnesota governor signed in earlier this year, allowing babies to be murdered up until birth, essentially.
How do you sleep at night? Seriously. I know that this is a country of freedoms. Okay, I'm grateful for the freedoms that we've been given. I wasn't born here, but I sure feel like I was, and I'm grateful for that, for the ability
Mm-hmm.
but what are these freedoms leading you into? You know, what are you fighting for, really? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of what kind of women's rights are you fighting for? We have rights. We have plenty of rights. But I'm totally against the right to have the right to remove your child from your uterus is barbaric. It's just barbaric. It's to fight with all you've got for the right to do that. Are you kidding me? That's
Mm-hmm.
It goes against every fiber of my being as a mother, as a woman, and as a Christian. And there's a lot of people out there that are single issue voters, that they're only voting, like you said, for the lesser of the two evils, and abortion is it. Whoever doesn't sign the bill to whoever is not Walls. I understand that. I understand that too. I understand that too. But when you think of, if you're going to talk rights and you're going to talk politics and you're going to talk constitutional rights, okay, the 14th Amendment guarantees every person the right to live your life and pursue happiness, and it guarantees every person that right. Well, an unborn child is a person, okay? And if you're going to fight for rights, fight for those rights.
Right,
They
right.
have rights.
And like we said, Carla, we're not preaching to the left or the Democrats or the pro, choice people. We're trying to preach to those who are calling themselves Christians, following Christ, that you need to be thinking about these things in this way. And
Absolutely.
Sharon asked in the chat here, what would Jesus do? And I think that's a question we need to ask about everything. And Mother Teresa quoted so well in regard to abortion. She said, "We've hardened our hearts." And that's really what we've done. And it's really sad that the churches remain silent on these issues. They don't bring them up. They don't discuss it. They should be discussing it a lot right now, quite frankly, to help educate their people. Here in Minnesota with Waltz, I looked up what the actual bill is, that there are no restrictions on abortion at any stage of pregnancy. Basically, it says declared abortion a fundamental right. So what is an abortion? It's like you said, tearing a baby out of your womb, limb by limb, or starving it to death and then, and killing it. That's your right here in Minnesota. And it can be exercised without restrictions at all stages of pregnancy. That means right up until birth.
Right up until birth. And not only that, but also, well, if you're underage, you don't need parental consent, and you don't need to tell your parents. You don't nothing. You could just walk in and have your abortion. If you're 13, 14 years old, and nobody will know the better. Your parents won't know. Nobody will know. What?
Well, and like the other part of what he said is what people want to hear, that they're protecting the right of Minnesotans to make sure that our state remains a place where people have the freedom to get the care they need to live their fullest lives. Again, like you said, the altar of me.
The altar.
And you mentioned too, emasculating men and the unborn children. You want to comment on that?
We have given women so much power to decide what to do with their own bodies. Okay, that we're forgetting that the baby belongs to two people. Okay, there's a mother and there's a father. Okay, and because we've made this the mother's choice, because it happens to be in our body, we have taken fatherhood away, for the right of fatherhood from the men. Okay, we have completely taken the right of men to fight for their unborn children, because, and I can tell you from personal experience, okay, that my husband told me, he goes, "I put you on that altar. I put your well-being and your mental health and whatever on that altar, and I acquiesced to whatever you wanted." But he was fine being a dad. He wanted to be a dad. We had talked about having children. I freaked out. I was the one and he caved. He told me years later, after the healing, he said, "I'm sorry, I wasn't stronger. I'm sorry that I didn't fight. I'm sorry that I allowed this to happen." And I go, "Well, I did it. Yes, but I shouldn't have let you do that to my kid." And that's what happens nowadays. Men are allowing women to do this to their children. I don't know if it's because they feel they don't have the right to speak up, which they do. Okay, but the law says that they don't. The law says it's a woman's choice. And
Right.
I actually heard on a podcast, a Christian podcast, by the way, a woman who leads a Bible study in one very popular church here, saying that she was explaining to her son that if his girlfriend ever got pregnant by him, that they should not, should practice abstinence, but in the event that he would have to let her choose, because it's her choice. And I said, "What are you saying? What are you teaching your sons?" They're already emasculating them from the age of 14. I think he was 14, 15 years old, talking to them that way, number one. And number two,
Wow.
telling them that it would be her choice.
Right.
To me, that's very, 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 very telling about how far we've fallen and how much we've taken away from men. And then women complain that, oh, they don't want to step up. They don't want to, well, because they feel that it's your choice. They've been told they have no right.
Right. And one last thing, Carla, that comes up a lot of times of people saying, critiquing or criticizing pro-lifers or people that promote that. And sometimes I think it's rightly so, they criticize that. You say, "Oh, you shouldn't have an abortion, don't kill the baby," but they don't offer help. Okay, so I'm telling you to have this child, but you don't have the support you need for a child, which is why many people, they don't want to. Christians, they need to be willing to take action to help those in needs and not just say, "Oh, I'll pray for you." Can you share just briefly what your clinic that you work with does? Because I know that you shared that you do help these women. You're trying to help them not abort their babies, but you don't just send them home to have a baby.
No, and not every woman that comes to our clinic is looking for an abortion or is undecided. A lot of them just don't have insurance and they can't go see a doctor, and they just want to make sure that they're pregnant and that their baby's okay. And they do get a free sonogram when they come to our clinic. So you give them the pregnancy test. If it's positive, we show them their sonogram and they walk away relieved. Okay, because now all they have to do is just wait a few months and then get emergency Medicaid because the baby's going to be covered and they'll be fine. And we bring them back. We bring them back like when they're 4 months, and we do another sonogram just to make sure that everything's okay. And then when the baby is born, we give them everything we could possibly give them in order to support them. Their parenting classes, we give them diapers, we give them wipes, we give them the cribs, we give them the sheets, we give them the clothes. They want formula, we give them formula. We have very generous donations of things. You know, they're used articles, but they're in great shape. You don't use baby items for a very long period of time. So whenever we get something, we take it to the different clinics, and we always have something to give. Breast pumps, anything they need, they just have to call, and we will either deliver it, or if they can't come pick it up, or we'll find a way. And if they moved away to another city in Florida, we'll find them a clinic like ours in the area that they're in, so that they can call them and get help from there as well. So we don't abandon them, and we do this until the child is at least 2. But I can tell you that whenever we get donations and we see like clothes for 5, 6-year-olds, we remember, oh, so-and-so has an older child. Maybe she could use these shoes. And we call them, hey, you know, we've got donations. So we're still working with them, even not only with the children that they have through our clinic, but the ones they had from before, you know, school supplies, whatever, you know, whatever we can give, we give. And we support them. They are never alone. That's the whole point.
And so it isn't just about don't have an abortion. There people are doing because I know a lot of people say that, and that's not true. Listening to you, that's obviously not true. And I think, you know, speaking to Christians, you know, in this discussion here, the church needs to step up. If there is a pregnant girl or a woman in their body, that they need to, you know, step up with that. And do we really think we can abolish abortion? I don't think so. It's not going to happen. Not now, not till Jesus comes, but it should be abolished in the church. That should not even come through a Christian's mind that this is an option.
I agree 100%. It should not be in anybody's vocabulary, and the preachers should step up.
Amen. And youth leaders, they really need to. They're the ones working with the kids, and that's where, you know, kids trust and they talk about things, and they need to. And you know, Sharon wrote earlier, what would Jesus do? In Matthew 21:10, it says that many are going to be led into sin. Right. And in verse 12, it says lawlessness is going to increase. The love of many will grow cold. And that's what we're seeing. And the question to the church is, are we going to endure to the end? And, you know, we're not there yet, but obviously it's getting closer. The love of many has really grown cold. But we need to be sharing these things. In one of the videos I added to that webpage, they interviewed different people, and they were asking them, oh, do you think abortion's okay? Oh, yes, it's her choice. Oh, yeah. And they were all for. And then they showed them a few videos of what an abortion actually is. And then they asked them, what do you think now? And they all said, I've changed my mind. Yep. Both men and women, boys and girls, both. Exactly. Because after seeing that. So, yeah, it's awful. It's awful. And it's awful to watch. But if you're saying you're going to promote this, you might as well watch it and see then first.
And stop looking at it as politics. It's not politics. Abortion has nothing to do with politics. Okay, mm-hmm. It's a human issue. It's a human rights issue. It's a moral issue. Okay, just because it has become a political issue and politicians talk about it all the time, doesn't make it a political issue. Okay, it is murder. Call it what it is and talk about it in your congregation. Get up there and say it. Because if you don't say it, it's going to stay a big secret, and people are going to make up their own minds about what it is and what it isn't. And that's why we're in the mess that we're in.
Mm-hmm. Amen. And as Christians, we need to be looking at the root of the problem. which is the sex outside of marriage for the most case, of it. And that needs to be preached and taught more to reduce these needs for abortions. And to take it further, I think we need to be active, like you said, in preaching this, but we need to be more active in preaching the good news of the kingdom, the name of Jesus, and perhaps then maybe people would be in a different place. They would understand righteousness and what that is. And I think it would all help while we're waiting for our redemption to come. Do you have any last thoughts or words that you'd like to share, Carla, tonight? I thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. I just it's all about loving the women that are wrong. Okay, it's trying to talk to them in a loving way and letting them know that that life is precious. That we've been given this amazing ability to bring life, and we're supposed to honor the Lord with that God-given gift. And don't dress it up as a choice. Don't dress it up as as anything other than what it is. It's precious. It's life. We're life givers, and we should treat ourselves as that, as life givers, and respect that. Don't fall for the rhetoric that's out there. That's very confusing, to tell you the truth, because they're trying to appeal to your common sense, and at the same time, they contradict themselves. And just go to your scripture and look at what the Lord says. Let him speak to you. Don't take your ideas from the TV and the politicians. Take your ideas
from social media. Yeah.
What the scripture says. Like Sharon said, what would Jesus do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do when you face him? What are you going to say? What did you do with the gifts that I gave you? So just be ready for that day, because it's coming.
Mm-hmm. Right. Thank you, Carla, for standing for so many others who fear or cannot. And I think this is a great question. If you are voting, who would Jesus vote for?
I don't like any of them. I know so many people that are writing in their own candidates that I refrain. Honestly, I don't. I'm like you, Tracy. I prefer not to give my vote sometimes. This time I'm considering it, but I honestly, I don't like any of them. I don't like any of them.
Like here, this is what my understanding is the lesser of two evils is still evil. And so that's the question that we need to deal with. And I put in the chat again. Thank you so much, Carla, for being with me tonight and sharing. I know it's a hard topic, and I put your testimony. If people haven't already seen that, please watch it. Check out kogmissions.com/life for more information and videos and things like that. We're just here to get you some information so that you can make more informed decisions and help those around you. And I know Carla does that with so many people in her own life and in the life of these women that come in the clinic. And so if anybody out there is considering abortion and you don't know what else to do, you can reach out. We can maybe point you in direction. If you've had an abortion, Carla can help maybe point you to some things in your area. She does do some of these healing sessions, working through these things with women. So feel free to reach out at tracy@kogmissions.com. And we obviously can't solve your problem for you, but we can help, as we can. And so thank you so much, Carla, for everything you do, and blessings on you and your ministry.
So much. God bless.
God bless. So I'd like to just end here with two passages. Genesis 1:27, that we are created in God's image. God created humankind in his own image. The image he created them, male and female, he created them. And then the really encouraging one in Psalm 139:13-16, that certainly you made my mind and heart. You wove me together in my mother's womb. I will give you thanks because your deeds are awesome and amazing. You knew me thoroughly. My bones were not hidden from you when I was made in secret. You sewed me together in the depths of the earth. your eyes saw me when I was inside the womb. All the days adorned for me were recorded in your scroll before one of them even came into existence. And thank you for those of you who made it to the end of this discussion. I know it's difficult, and for those of you watching the replay, and I appreciate you not only watching, but hopefully sharing with the people around you. So thank you so much, and have a blessed evening.